I'm an Italian chef that from Italy I moved all the way to Texas to work for the very best barbecue restaurant in business, to master the craft of barbecue. Now I'll teach barbecue worldwide. My name is Max and this is Texicana Barbecue. What's up everybody, Texicana Barbecue. Today we are in Arlington, Texas at Hurtado Barbecue and we're going to talk about brisket. Now the last video that I made about brisket from zero to hero, it was about 3 years ago. Now from that time to this day I've changed, I've evolved, so I changed a lot my way of cook brisket. In this video I'll share my favorite technique that I found out that works effectively every time. Location, location, location. The most important thing if you want to have a consistent cook and you want to go home early is to position the brisket in the right spot. So smallest brisket, they always go towards the front by the door. Biggest brisket, they always go towards the smokestack by the wall. Wall is this part, door is this part. Why? Because over here you have direct heat. Over here there is no convection. It's heat that burns but it doesn't cook. In the back you have more convection. The heat tries to escape and it creates convection. So always your biggest brisket. So probably 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the location, right? So we're cooking on a primitive pit, 1,000 gallon. It fits normally 6 rows of 4, total of 20 for brisket. Up to here you don't put nothing because it burned the fuck out of it. You can do beef chicks, you can make tallow, you can roast stuff, chicken is good over there. In the loading process I'm not worried too much on how I load the brisket, but this is pretty much the same method that I used to use 3 years ago. Basically all the raw brisket they have to look on an angle like this. Biggest brisket by the wall, smallest brisket by the door. The way it shapes is the way it cooks. Trimming, super important. 7-step, how to trim a brisket super quick. Okay, the brisket is a large piece of meat, so if you don't have a system, you end up flip-flopping around this poor piece of meat, and you don't want that. Number 1, because it gets warm. Number 2, because it gets to room temperature, bacteria goes up. And number 3, because nobody wants to see somebody with 65 kg of brisket in the middle of the kitchen. Move number 1, the decal fat. Trimming a brisket is a lot of shaving move, is not much carving, okay? We're shaving this. I'm not carving inside. And move number 1 is done. Move number 2. This is pretty good. There is a little bit of fat, but in some brisket there is a lot of silver skin. You want to remove that. I don't need to remove 100%, just a little bit. Okay. Move number 3. Move number 3 over here. This side, we'll give it a long stroke with the knife. And we need this especially later on when we have to figure out our fat cap. We have move number 4, which is carving a little bit this part, not so much. Over here, so this I consider this one move, and this part over here. There is a little bit of carving, but not so much. I don't go particularly hard on this because I like to sell this piece. Okay. Move number 6, and in this stage we are shaping our brisket like a bullet shape. We don't want corner and we don't want this piece of lean fat which is too lean, which is too thin, and it will burn. Okay? So we're gonna go like this. The last move, fat cap. Very important. Again, this is a shaving move, but now because we remove previously a little bit of this part, now I can see exactly how my fat cap goes. The fat cap, you gotta spend a minute, take your time, because it's very important. Basically, in the first hours of the cook, you want the seasoning and the creation of the bark. You have a nice bark. So if there is too much fat cap, your seasoning never set. So people who have a hard time setting the bark, most likely is because of that. They leave too much fat cap. Also, slice of brisket with a huge fat cap, it won't taste right because it never cooks. A perfectly cooked brisket should have a little bit of fat, yellowish. That means that it is cooked truly. 7 steps between 2 and 5 minutes, you got your brisket trimmed. Okay, so again, first step, the decal fat. Second step, the silver skin. Third step, the whatever, how you want to call it, the side. Fourth step, this chunk of fat. Fifth step, the burn end. Sixth step, the shape. Seventh step, the fat cap. Seasoning, super important. So we already seen in the trimming process how important is the fat cap in order to have a great bark. Too much fat, the bark basically is not going to set. Also in the seasoning, for rule number 1, if somebody puts more than 6 ingredients in the seasoning, it doesn't know what the fuck it's doing. Okay, here we go. And then the competition people will lost it already. I've done it so many kind of seasoning, mixing this, mixing that. The truth of the matter is that the black pepper is so powerful that most likely gonna cover up any other taste. So for a great bark, there is a million ways how to season a brisket, but for a great bark, my ratio is 3 cups of black pepper, mesh 16. Over here we have Fiesta, is a great pepper, and I don't use kosher salt. I started using table salt. So this ratio, because the table salt is much more saltier than the kosher salt, so only with table salt, this 3-to-1, it makes sense. This is the principle. The more powder you're putting in your seasoning, the more moisture will attract through the cooking process. So for these people that have a hard time setting the bark, most likely the fat cap is too thick, most likely there is too much powder in the seasoning. So that's why I keep this my seasoning bare and simple. Good old seasoning. We have mustard, which I cut it off with some water, some apple cider vinegar, some pickle juice, some whatever you want. You see this in the cooking process, no good. If you have this flippity flappity, take it off. All right, here we go. Now, because of desperation, I learned how to season with my hand because, you know, the dishwasher seems to give a fuck only about my cups from the seasoning, so I give up on that. And you need a dishwasher in the restaurant. So here you go. We're doing the corner first, and then we're doing the top. This is pretty much the same technique that I used to use in the old video, Brisket from Zero to Hero. Here we go. Okay, and this is about what I do in the bottom. Okay, the top. When you season, you don't want to move your brisket too much, otherwise that's what's going to happen. Normally I do with a cutting board, but over here we're kind of improvising a bit. Not too much mustard. Here we go. Seasoning, basically what you want to do, you want to start from this corner, you're going to end up for these corners, as even as you can. Like when I like what I do, I'll give a little pat. If you put too much mustard, what's going to happen? When you touch the brisket, it's going to stick too much to your hand. All right. Okay, now the brisket is seasoned. Example, I was talking before. Now this brisket is bigger than this brisket, so what we're going to do, we're going to move it around. When we load the brisket, we try to shrink the surface a little bit. So we kind of sort of reshape the brisket. That does make a difference. The less surface that your brisket in the pit occupied, the most likely you're going to have a better result and no burn edges. The cooking method. The cooking method, in the years I found out so many ways how to get there. The method that we use today, but then we have chance of talking about other methods in different video, but the method that we're using today, we are running 260 for the first, I will say 4 or 5 hours, depend how the cook goes. I cannot stress enough how important is the fire management. You can have a low temperature and a crazy fire, so you got to learn how to make low steady fire. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about today, just because I made another video. Actually, I was here at the same place at Hurtado, so check the video out, fire management. But now, besides fire management, let's talk about temperature. We are going to run 250 to 60. Another thing about temperature, we are averaging it, okay? So we're averaging temperature. That means that for a minute I can go at 240, for a minute I can go at 270, but long story short, on the total cook, if I'm saying that I'm going at 260, most likely I want to be towards the 250, 260, not 220. About 5 hours into the cook, we are with my buddy Andrew over here. So 5 hours into the cook, what happened? The fat cap has a nice color. Start cooking. The bark, basically, the spices, the seasoning is sinking into the fat cap, which is super important if you don't want your bark to wash out after we wrap. Okay. In the cooking process is going to shrink quite a bit. So from those couple of inches distance between one brisket and another, originally they're going to become 4 inches. They're going to become much, you know. The space will going to become much greater. We take advantage of the shrinkage of the brisket to move everything towards the smokestack. The principle is you want to be the fuck away from the fire, okay? Especially if you don't have a good fire management skill. That's what you want to do. 8 hours into the cook, it's about time to wrap. So we've seen it that if you have a lot of powder in your seasoning, maybe you leave a little bit too much of fat cap, there is no way you're gonna have the bark nice, crispy bark. It's always gonna be mushy. Now, pro and cons of a butcher paper. The pro of the butcher paper is that if you like mushy, when I say mushy, you're not gonna have a very crispy bark. Everything's gonna be a little mush. It is true that it protects a lot the brisket. The butcher paper protects the brisket. So it kind of shields the heat much better. This is the good thing about butcher paper. And I had this question asked a million times. What about this tallow? What about this tallow? Cooking a brisket is not about a trend. Cooking brisket is about procedure. Now, if you want to use tallow, I don't recommend it. I don't like it. But if you want to use tallow, it gets soaked into the butcher paper, so it does helps a little bit. I don't like, because if you have to do pro and cons, tallow without no tallow, I think you have much more problems related to the bark and flavor. Now we're talking about already a prime piece of meat, which is a very high content of fat. I wouldn't put another a half a pound of fat into the brisket. There's only so much fat that's going to improve your flavor. More than that, you know, it's not going to improve anything. So, bad side of butcher paper, the negative side of butcher paper, it's going to make your cook a little bit longer. Okay. Again, it's not because the top barbecue place they're using butcher paper. Everybody has to use butcher paper. Top barbecue place, they don't care too much about how long it takes to cook a brisket, because they have the brisket cook separated into shifts, so it doesn't really matter. Now, probably starting in the last year, I only wrap in foil. The bad side about foil, your bark has to be set, because there is a high chance you're going to wash out your bark. How you going to set your bark? With fire management, with trimming, and having a seasoning which is very sandy. If you have a sandy seasoning, do you hear that noise? Probably no. But when you hear that noise, right there, it means that the brisket in here, they start losing juices, and that is the sign that is the sign that the brisket is ready to wrap. Let's take a look at this brisket. All right. So over here, trimming wise, that's why we want to trim the decal fat a little bit hard. Otherwise, that's going to happen. Okay. They did a better job over here. Okay. But the bark now is set. There is not much. You know, if I touch the brisket, nothing gets sticks on my finger. Wrapping the brisket. Now, going back to tallow, if you want to spread some tallow in butcher paper, you're free to do that. Different wise, doing spritzing and doing tallow makes a big difference. No, it doesn't. Okay, little tiny brisket. We wrap this guy. One, I hold. Two. This, of course, you know, different brisket has they have different size. An important move is this: you want to wrap the brisket tight. Okay, especially with butcher paper. Okay. Now let's. Can you get the foil?
Yep.
With foil, same procedure. Now, you want to always roll once, no matter if it's foil or butcher paper, because the gesture, when we're going to pull a brisket, at least the way I do it, the way I've learned, I'm not the only one doing it, we grab the brisket, this is the move, with a towel, and we go with our finger right in the center of the flat. That means this is the last piece of meat, the last meat that breaks. Okay? Breaks meat when the connective tissue, it kind of starts collapsing. There is a thin line between having a brisket tight or having a brisket overcooked. So the experience of a pit master, the way we grab it, it seems like we don't do it, but once we grab it like this. So my hands sliding in the middle side of the brisket, right in the middle. It's not a squeeze move. I do more of this, kind of like this. If it feels soft, not too tough, the brisket is ready to pull. Most likely, probably on an offset smoker, around between 2.5 and 2.10, you're most likely around that range of doneness, good doneness. But it could also happen that you can have a brisket completely tight at 205 or completely overcooked at 205. So this is my last. I don't temp brisket. This is basically what I do. Now we're gonna run. For about 3 hours, we're gonna blast at 300. It's super important to keep at 300. We don't want to lose momentum. And that's what's up. What's up, baby boy? Bush in the house. We got Bush in the house. Bush, do you like more? So Bush, do you like more butcher paper or foil? The what? Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't care. Here we go. What we got today here. Here we go.
Picture or video?
Video. The little red one. You good?
Right. Yep, video.
The number rolling?
Yep.
You're the most awkward cameraman I've ever seen in my life.
The video's rolling.
Video's rolling. And that'll be all for today with Andrew, with Chris. What's your story? Speak through the microphone. Terry's Black, right?
John Mueller's, Terry Black's, Rolling Smoke, and then Hurtado Barbecue.
Attaboy. Chris, what's your story?
Just here, man. Hurtado barbecues.
Hurtado barbecue.
Ciao.
So guys, I'm sorry, but this is my video that lets you think. Do this job, you have to be passionate. It's not about the title, it's not about the trending of the minute. No, it's not. Before it was the trending of the month. Now it's the trending of the minute. There's so much content out there. There is the truth about everything, and it contradicts itself at the same time. Go and talk with a pit master, preferably at 2 in the morning. Nobody gonna kick out to the pit room. And that about is, I guess it will be all for today. God bless America.
God bless America.
Chris, Andrew, good people over here. Ciao. Last time that I made a video, no. Now, I've done it. Spit on the fucking table. Okay, let's do, maybe you wanna do a, okay. Holy fuck, the shit is on fire. Hold on, the firebox. This looks pretty good, but it looks a little fucked up. I'm fucking drunk. So the truth of the matter is, guys, that